Well, good morning. Welcome to another episode of College Coffee Talk with Pearl and Andy Lockwood. Good morning, Pearl.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning, listeners.
And it's a delight to be back here again right after our November 1 deadlines for many early decisions and early actions. And today we're going to be talking about some fake emergencies. Part of this is our fault, but a lot of our clients go right down on the wire with some of these deadlines. And every year I sort of vow, we're going to make it better this year. We're not going to let things go to the last minute and try to manage it. But what ends up happening is that things get unnecessarily chaotic and stressful. So I wanted to talk today about how to make things less chaotic and less stressful. Let's do our simultaneous sip of coffee. Pearl on brand with her Pearl mug. Me with the coffee cup from the local guy at the deli. Victor.
Great coffee.
Yes. Thank you, Victor. I had to pay today, but every once in a while he throws me a free one.
When no one's looking.
On 3, 1, 2, 3. Delightful. Yeah, today I was the quirky guy who walked to the office and then promptly got to the office and put myself up in the standing desk position.
Are you standing?
Yeah.
You could never tell?
Well, I am standing, but I do a lot of leaning.
Right next to the window.
Yeah. I do a lot of leaning, though, so I think I'm sort of destroying the whole purpose of having a standing desk. Anyway.
Can you tell that I'm standing?
You are not standing.
No.
You do not have standing to make those jokes.
Very
funny. Stand when you... Okay. So I understand what you're doing, which is you're trying to distract me. But I want to talk about these fake emergencies, because I'm still a little shell-shocked. You had them too in the financial aid arena as well. So Pearl does approximately 400 families worth of financial aid applications every year, very heavily deadline driven. I focus more on the college advising, and between me and our editors and our other college advisors, I think to a T, we all had people who came down to the last minute. So when you have a November 1 deadline, that means the filing needs to be done by 11:59 p.m. That night of November 1st. And it's striking to me how some people, parents too, not just kids, it's not just an immaturity thing, will hire us to get an outcome, which is to help optimize their ability to get what they want, which is usually admission to a top school, a bunch of top schools, or money from the colleges themselves, whether it's need-based aid or merit-based aid. And we can say, okay, good, we want to make sure you're going to be a good client, we're going to play ball with you, but you have to also return the favor. And when we ask you for some types of information, we need it back promptly. If in your case, Pearl, you send them something to review, we need that back promptly, because you're drafting their financial aid applications and you can't just file them without their consent. They actually have to be involved with the filing. But every year, things get down to the wire, and it seems like it's all easily avoidable from just a basic understanding of logical steps. But I think what happens is, we all procrastinate, we all get overwhelmed. So I understand that. So what happened this year? You had a couple of people you were still waiting on. We shouldn't name any names, of course, but in terms of like your best tips and your, I guess, some common pitfalls, can you talk a little bit about that process with you and helping people avoid these types of unnecessarily rushed and possibly sloppy and mistake-ridden financial aid applications, which could only result in the loss of money that they otherwise would have deserved?
So when you rush anything, which basically means if you've been maybe part of the process, but then you drag your feet, you drag your feet, you drag your feet, you drag your feet, and then all of a sudden it's an emergency because you're up against a deadline. And maybe some people work optimal under those conditions, but nonetheless, we have found that if any part is rushed, the result of that is usually not positive. In any case, what I've noticed with some clients is there is a tendency to be a bit myopic with the entire process. And with that, I mean, whether it's you can talk to an infinite amount of time into the infinite future about whether, three schools that are quite similar, the exactitude of this year's metrics of admissions and you can study those charts that are endless, I'm sure, on the internet and other sources. And where is it really for work, like that kind of needless, senseless activity is not really advancing your cause nonetheless. Okay. There are lots of things that have to happen. There are a lot of moving parts. You don't want to be so involved, so knee deep in details that you miss deadlines or you forget about other really main things. I had a client maybe on deadline day who really, it was like a major rush situation. Of course, it's been weeks and months of continuous, this is what we need, this is what we need, this is what we need. And then didn't get the stuff till the day we were filing. And, I got a question like, well, do you really need the W-2s? No, I'm just asking because I actually had a really cool idea about maybe wallpapering my new bathroom with W-2s. And that's why I'm asking. Okay. Of course I need them. Not only do I forget me and for the forms, because it's not just about, well, I earned this, that there are a lot of other codes and details on that W-2 that actually mean something and have to go in these forms. So don't get out of your own way. Okay. Give yourself enough time, hand over or, get your stuff done, get it submitted and get out of the weeds. Okay. And that also goes with the tinkering about, well, should I do this one early decision or is it this much harder to get into this school? Is it that much harder to get? At some point, you got to just make a decision and move forward with your path. Audio. Audio. Can't hear you.
All right. Am I back?
Yes.
That was weird. All right. So when you talk about things like that.
Did you mute me?
Excuse me?
Did you mute me?
No.
Okay, I'm only kidding.
I would never mute you. That's just everyone else in our family when you send out a text. So it was John Wooden, I believe, the all-time winningest UCLA men's basketball coach, who said something like, don't confuse activity with achievement. And what you're saying is, it's of course it's fine to research and go deep, but not at the expense of the important stuff, which is taking care of your, that has to be taken care of in order to get the results that you want.
Right.
So I see the same thing with some of our kids that we work with, who they might start their essays in June or right after June when school ends, the beginning of July, and some of them are really diligent, really high achieving, and then we get into July, beginning of August. I'm like, I think you're done. I think your personal statement is done. We've covered the top 5 of your supplemental essay colleges. You're in really good shape, but invariably, some of those will still be tinkering and iterating, ideating all of their everything that they've written, and it comes right down to October 30th, October 31st. I had a client whose parent who stayed out of the process inserted himself into it on October 28th or something. And she said, I just have a few questions about the essay. And then we went into mind-numbing detail and sort of like esoteric discussions of like, well, is this really clear when you, and I'm not going to give any descriptions because this is actually an amalgam description of a few different clients. But just getting into these nuances of things that no admissions officer would ever give a crap about in the essay, but has to be some sort of like technically correct thing in case it gets peer reviewed in Lancet or something. I don't know. So the point is that there's a time when you just have to say, okay, it's time to let go, because you don't need to, when you're done with an essay in July or August, that doesn't mean that you've got to pull an all-nighter the Thursday before a Saturday deadline, or in the busiest, arguably the hardest and busiest academic time in a kid's high school career, the first half of senior year of high school. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be a productive thing. The other thing is a lot of times people are about to file, and because they're looking at the application really for the first time, and they hit review and submit, and then there's this message, oh, there's another essay that you need to do, and that could be triggered because of the program or the particular school that you're applying to. So I had that happen with a couple of kids this year. I didn't know that they were, they didn't apply to the school that I recommended or the program that I recommended, and they just sort of got lost in the shuffle between, the craziness that happens every year. So I feel like I could have managed it better had I just been more repetitious about things. But someone had an issue like that where it was the morning of the deadline and he filed, and then he got a message saying, okay, your application is incomplete. Now you need to do this. And they're like, who did that? And I'm like, well, I didn't think you were applying there. I thought you were applying to the other school. There's no issue with the other school. You're a better candidate for the other school. So things like that happen too, where there are these last minute fake emergencies that easily could have been avoided. And I feel badly because, they hire us, families hire us to help manage that process, but we can give the advice, but it doesn't always get taken. So, it's just really rough. So let me see a couple comments here, Pearl. Rob, this dovetails nicely. Oh, by the way, good morning to, let's see, Paul and Christina, and who else? Chivellini. Welcome. If you guys have anything to share away. Rob says, dovetails nicely with something the UGA admissions dean said, which is he loves September apps. Yeah. August apps many times are missing information and need revisions. I completely agree with that. And October essays read as rushed. They can, for sure. I don't know if that was the issue with us this year, because most of the time the essays that we work on have been edited and redrafted multiple times. I'm sort of talking about the opposite, where it gets excruciating. September is a sweet spot, although they treat every application the same. Yeah. Financially is similar, I suspect. Yeah, maybe. Christina, law of diminishing returns. Absolutely. Yeah. No, more banter, please. I don't get that too much. Pearl, you might.
We'll try. It's not natural for us to banter.
It's our stage, our highly trained stage presences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Call me?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Pearl, we're going to banter.
Oh.
This is awkward now.
It's getting to be an awkward banter.
Yeah. Bant away. All right. I don't really have much else to say because I don't want to make this like a venting thing. But I think what kids who are younger and families who are younger, what we really need to emphasize with them is and I know this is like easier in the easier said than done bit of advice, which is that you have to understand that this process takes way longer than you think it does, especially if you have a high achieving kid who's a perfectionist, and which is great, but um, but a little bit of a procrastinator in June or July. We start our kids as early as we can, sometimes even before school ends in June. A lot of people don't start these essays until September or October, and I understand that. I'm guilty of procrastinating many things myself. I think everyone is, but where it can really come to bite you in the butt is in a situation where you're artificially pushing for a November 1 deadline. And I say artificially because on one hand, early decision certainly is one of those deadlines that I think is important, because early decision statistics indicate that you have a better chance of getting in. Although, to be fair, there's so much self-selectivity in those early decision statistics that they don't really help as much as you might think from reading the raw numbers. But early action does not help your chances of getting in. There are no stats. If someone's seen something other than what I have not seen about early action, please tell me. But there is literally no proven benefit to the students of applying early action in the areas of admissions or financial aid. The theory behind early action is that you apply earlier, you'll find out earlier. The reality is anywhere from 50 to 80% of colleges over the last 3 years has deferred their early applicant. I'm sorry, they've deferred about 50 to 80% of their applicant pool because they've been inundated so much with these early applications, but they haven't been able to staff up to review those applications. And of course, as we enter an era where, every time I read I open up one of the industry rags that I read, there are more job cuts being announced, right? But as we enter this new era of cost cutting by colleges, it's increasingly less likely that there's going to be more people reviewing applications. So I think that these early action applications being adjudicated on time, so quote unquote, to meet the expectations of people applying early action in December, I think that is going to continue not to be the case for at least 50%, if not 50 to 80% of early action applicants. So rushing in a less than perfect application by November 1st is not as good as applying with a solid application, a well thought out one, by January.
Agreed.
Let's go to the mailbag. All right. Paul, big difference this year. 85% of the schools have been applied to by November 1st. My older daughter didn't apply to any colleges before January 1st. Thanks for all of your help.
You are welcome.
You are welcome. That is good to hear. Rob, is Michigan worth applying early action anymore? Seems like they are a heavy deferral type place. Yeah, I think it's worth it in the sense of getting your crap out the door. But now that Michigan is early decision for the first year, I think we're going to see all kinds of crazy stats about the percentage of kids who get an early decision. Again, it's a lot of legacy. It's a lot of heavy hitter donor people. It's whatever stats are misleading. I believe in early action from the just get it off your plate perspective, but not if it's going to create this chaos and undue stress. Pearl Lockwood, your thoughts, please.
I would agree with you. Everything in this process is on a timeline, and the effort that you put towards that task, it's important that corresponds with that timeline. What I mean, and what Andy has basically said, the reason why you really need to focus on the essays and get them finished, the applications out the door during the summer before 12th grade, is that has to take your time and care in order to have a quality result. So we've established that. And once the fall semester of the senior year begins, your priority of time needs to be on your classes, because we have found that admissions decisions have frequently turned on mid-semester senior grades. So
Not just the first quarter, but sometimes later.
Exactly right. So you have to keep your foot on the pedal, on the gas, throughout that throughout that senior fall semester, because those grades can really, really count towards your admission or denial at a school. So you don't want to spend that time, which needs your focus for studies, on your applications and essays, which should have been done over the summer when you don't have the burden of your fall classes upon you. So just a recommendation. And in terms of financial aid world, many people have and I have certainly filed many, many financial aid forms in accordance with many priority financial aid deadlines for early decision or early action, depending on the school, of November 1st. And now what happens, and what I've been telling our clients, the ball has been lobbed into the college's court, so to speak, so that they can each begin preparing financial aid packages for the student, should the student be admitted. To that end, some schools may ask for no additional information because they have what they need through the forms, or other schools will ask for a lot of other information. So it's important to check emails, check school portals for what may be needed, required of you. And there's going to be a back and forth between student, family, and the school, supplying everything that's needed until the school can render a financial aid decision. Here's what's important as a matter of practice. While you are getting the schools what they need, unfortunately, schools frequently fail to update their portals in real time to acknowledge that they've received whatever it is you've sent them, be it the FAFSA, the CSS profile, a teacher recommendation, your parents' 2024 tax return. Whatever it is, you may have done it. It may even be a week later. You check the portal, it's still saying it's missing. You're getting an email saying, we are looking for your FAFSA. And it will send alarm and panic frequently to the student and the student's family. Unfortunately, I'm here to tell you now, you do not freak out, because it is par for the course that these websites are not updated in real time. But everybody who has submitted a FAFSA, CSS profile, all of those forms are time and date stamped. So you always have the proof, the backup, to go back to any school who's claiming something is actually missing once you actually get in touch with the school and say, are you sure it's really missing? Is it still missing? And then frequently at that point, they're like, oh, yes, we do have your FAFSA. We see it now, so that's how it goes.
Yeah, those emails are blasts, and what people don't see is at the bottom. And after you get this email that says information missing or something like that, and you read the whole thing, which most people don't, because they forward to you and they're like, Pearl, I thought we filed or something.
Right.
At the bottom it says, if you've already submitted your FAFSA, you can ignore this,
right,
or something like that.
Right.
Similar for the admissions portals. So there are usually not a lot of cortisol raising, panic inducing emails that come from the admissions side, but as the equivalent. But every kid who has submitted already, and keep this in mind when you submit for later deadlines, most of these colleges will give you a portal to log into. So you've got to check your email for that. And then you've got to log into the portal and see what information they've received. Again, it may not be downloaded instantaneously. The Common Application shows you when a school has downloaded your application, but that's it. They don't look at the other requirements. So the school portal will say, okay, here's what we need. Guidance counselor letter of recommendation, either that's received or not received. Then there's the teacher recommendations, there's the transcripts, there might be some other stuff. So you need to monitor that.
Mm-hmm.
I've personally heard a handful of horror stories over the last, I don't know, eight years or so, probably, where the family relied on the guidance counselors at their schools. And I'm not talking only about public high schools. I'm also referring to some elite private high schools where the teacher recommendations weren't sent, or 1 out of 2 was sent because the guidance counselor said, oh, well, some schools only want 1. Well, this school wanted 2 and you sent only 1. So now my application is incomplete and I'm in danger of not having it reviewed. So you have to be in charge of all this. Even if you hire us or hire another college advisor, or you think your guidance counselor should be handling this at your private high school or your public high school, you still have to be in charge. You cannot abdicate that responsibility. You've got to make sure that they have everything. But bear in mind that everything doesn't get updated instantaneously after you send it. You've got to give them a day or 2 for some intern or whatever who's in that admissions office or that financial aid office to actually upload it.
I frequently find myself saying, it should be this way. It should be handled this way. This should happen. Yeah. And then I say, the island of should doesn't exist. Things don't happen the way they should.
Yeah, sometimes you say the land of shoulds.
The land of shoulds, the island of should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an island off the coast of the land of shoulds.
There is no island of should. That's the problem.
Oh, okay. I thought we were just doing more banter for Christina.
That too.
And ourselves. Let's be honest.
Okay.
Okay, why don't we wrap up here? That was another fulsome half hour on the Facebook show that we do every Monday, which is located at facebook.com/Lockwood College Prep. It's called College Coffee Talk. Please share this with anyone you think could use this information. If you are not sick of hearing us, you don't want to ever miss out on an episode, you should like it, even if you don't actually like it, but Facebook like it.
We don't have like a kind of like it button.
Right.
It's okay, I'm warming up to it, like it.
Is there an ambivalent button? I would check that for us sometimes. But there's also the podcast. This gets repurposed out on the podcast, which is number 2 on Spotify, as I checked with ChatGPT 2 weeks ago. Infallible, not a hallucination. And it's called The College Admissions Edge. It's on Spotify, Apple, probably a bunch of other places that we have no idea are out there. Pearl, what are you doing the rest of today? Taking the day off?
Yeah, I'm going to kick my feet up and have a margarita or 2. No. Now I have November 15th deadlines. On to the next. The train doesn't stop.
All right. I guess I'll do some work too.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of College Coffee Talk. Bye-bye.
Bye.